Pretty in pink, isn't she? Did you guys know I sleep with this every night? Every night. I have for like years. The girl bought it for me. Sweetest thing. Sweetest thing. I still sleep with it. And so we've come to the end of the road. And still I can't let go. We are done. Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Season freaking 7. The end of the line. I am exhausted. Should have been there, B. Quite a ride. Season 7 is Buffy the Vampire Slayer is easily one of the most interesting, one of the most thought-provoking, one of the most confrontational, and one of the coolest shows uh ever. Yeah, one of my top 5 favorite shows ever made. There's some extremely touching and badass shit all throughout it. I love it. I love Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And it's with a heavy heart that that I end this series of videos that we've done exploring extensively and, like I said, fucking exhaustively Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I've had a great time here. I've had a great time in Sunnydale. It's also with a heavy heart that I have to admit that season 7 is one of the absolute worst seasons of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I think that Buffy is bookended by bad seasons of television. I think that season 1 and season 7 are objectively not good. They're just not good seasons. Season 7 is better than season 1. It has a bad reputation, and for very good reason. The motivations of our characters are entirely unclear. The mechanics of the narrative are entirely faulty and just don't make sense whatsoever. The big bad, which is the first evil, a villain of the fucking week from season 3 coming to take center stage. And the problem with a villain like the first evil is that you don't really have a hyper personification of that evil. It turns into different dead people, which could be interesting, and at times it almost is interesting. Like when Faith is talking to the mayor, that's an interesting dynamic. When Andrew is talking to Warren or Jonathan, those are interesting dynamics. Uh, at times we can play around with um with character development, with uh with nihilism through these conversations with dead people. By the way, Conversations with Dead People is one of the best episodes of season 7. I would say Conversations with Dead People and Storyteller are the two best episodes of season 7, which would be kind of a weaker episode in a very good season. So it's still not exactly saying much. But my main point with the first evil, the thing that I'm kind of criticizing, is that you don't have a hyper personification of the first evil. You don't have like um, a face to associate with the big bad. And you need one because Buffy is a show with extremely flamboyant, extravagant, and interesting, visually interesting big bads. And we don't get a personification of that evil until Nathan Fillion shows up in episode 18. Episode 18 is when things actually start to get good, or better. I should say better, not necessarily good, because it does crumble and fall apart rapidly at an increasing level of speed by the finale, which is a bit underwhelming. But come episode 18, Nathan Fillion assumes the position of the first right-hand man, uh, Caleb, an evil, satanic, misogynist preacher, who I've read a piece from Joss Whedon where he was like, well, he was going to be like the first woman-hating misogynist we've had since, I guess last season with Warren. It's weird. I think that the show in season 7, you can feel it run out of steam in real time. Season 6 said a lot of very interesting and challenging things. Season 6 was intensely confrontational, nihilistic teen drama television, and I thought it was pretty wonderful and very grappling. Season 7, running out of steam entirely, but in episode 18, we do get the introduction of Father Caleb, and Nathan Fillion is extremely good as this antagonistic role. I actually really adore him in this role. He's extremely entertaining and pretty creepy, and morbidly humorous. I do like Nathan Fillion a lot here, and I like knowing that Firefly would be Joss's next big venture, next big exercise in television. And well, here we see Captain Reynolds himself playing a role that is antithetical to that of Mal. So that's pretty exciting. Also in episode 18, our Lord and Savior Faith returns to the narrative. Um, of course, Buffy, Joss wanted you to watch both Buffy and Angel at the same time. Um, and I think on a first watch, that is the best thing to do. If you're watching this stuff for the first time, that's the best thing to do. Angel is a good show. Occasionally, it's a brilliant show, but it is a frustrating show overall. I do like Faith on Angel, and I'm bringing this up because Faith made her grand reappearance in Angel before episode 18 of season 7 of Buffy. So, those who watched Angel would have already seen Faith return, and it's kind of like they saved Faith's big entrance for Angel, which is kind of a shame. But yeah, come episode 18 of season 7, you get a good 4 episode like run where the emotions are really ramping up, where the end is like the end of the entire series is really within your grasp, and emotions start to go st- you start to feel it really starts to hit you in the feels. um so it's not a show without any power, it's just without any kind of profound power. So much of it just doesn't make much sense. The characterizations, the motivations, the dumbest thing in the entire season comes near the very end of the season after Faith has already shown up, and it shows how quickly it could all crumble again. Where Buffy is kicked out of her own house by her friends, by these teenage potential slayers that she is shepherding and caring for, by Faith, which is understandable. She's the only one who should have been criticizing her in that scene, and Faith should have been told to leave the room. That's how that should have played out. It doesn't serve any grand purpose because Buffy is back in the fold 2 fucking episodes later as the leader. Whatever, dude. It served no purpose. Faith, that's the only motivation that makes sense in that scene where Buffy is kicked out of the house and told she cannot be a leader, and everyone just kind of like spits on her in a very large way. The disrespect is insurmountable. Faith is the only one who should have been criticizing her because that's in Faith's design as a fucking archetype. That's what no one else should have just they all shouldn't have dogpiled her, especially Willow, especially Kennedy. Kennedy is the most annoying character in the world. I hate Kennedy. All of the potentials are extremely annoying. Like Felicia Day might be kind of interesting, or at least she was fun and funny. The one with the awful Cockney British accent or whatever the fuck was hilarious. She died pretty quick. Lelaine from Lizzie McGuire was a cool one. She's the one who hung herself. Um, Kennedy had the most spotlight as a potential slayer and being Willow's new love interest, and I thought that Kennedy was unbearable. I hated that character. I hated being around that character. Um, it was so contrived, and her character was just like narratively repulsive. Like I hated what she brought to the story. I hated what her behavior was like, and I absolutely like cemented my hatred of almost all of these new characters in the scene where Buffy, the hero, is kicked out of her own fucking house, and then her sister tells her she needs to leave. Dawn tells her she needs to leave. No motivations make any sort of motherfucking sense, and uh that kind of scenario that I played out to you, the same kind of stupid shit like that happens every handful of episodes. So every time you think that the season has found its rhythm, something like that happens and it's cacophonous again. It just doesn't make any fucking sense. Is there a theme of season 7? Sure, it's probably the theme of one of the primary themes of the show, which is redemption. Buffy is definitely a show that believes characters can be redeemed. And we had these in large ways, like Willow redeeming herself for her dark Willow villainous deeds. I mean, Angel is a reformation story in Manifest, so is Spike. Everybody, Buffy never really did anything wrong. She's our hero. Like, she hasn't done anything vile. A lot of these characters have done vile and wicked things, and redemption is a clear possibility. I love Andrew. I love Andrew. He's another one of these redemption stories. I love Andrew. I know a lot of people don't, but I think that he is a saving grace of season seven. Oh my God, I despair to imagine this show, this season, without Andrew's involvement, his nearly constant involvement. I think he's a hilarious character, and he's a character who actually just now watching it, he made me cry at the very end of the season. Um, like I said, one of the best episodes of season seven is Storyteller, where we kind of play with the meta narrative. It's a lovely kind of postmodern character study of Andrew, this guy who kind of sees the world in the most outrageously nerdy kind of ways. He is very like kind of facile and artificial. He's a shallow person emotionally. And he's entirely immature and kind of sadistic, right? Because we have to remember he's a part of the trio, even though he was seduced by Warren. Um, like sexually and physically and emotionally, like seduced by Warren. He was in love with Warren, and it led to him killing Jonathan at the beginning of this season. And in Storyteller, we get a bit of redemption for that, and we kind of focus on Andrew and get down to the scared, sensitive, outcast misfit that's in there, and I feel for that. And the point of the Storyteller episode is to not tell stories. Is that our lives are not cinematic, you know. It kind of flies in the face of a lot of like postmodern ideals. Our lives aren't cinematic. You stop telling stories, live your actual life. That kind of thing is pretty easy to grasp, but it's made kind of stronger. That kind of a very easy sentiment is given a lot more strength in this in the season or series. Actually, it makes me want to cry. The series finale, Chosen, where Anya is cut in fucking half. I cried when Xander, after the battle, after they escape the Hellmouth, after they escape Sunnydale, when Xander asks Andrew, like, how did she die? Essentially, is what he is asking Andrew, and she died in battle. She died being cut in two. But Andrew, the storyteller, decided to tell a story and told Xander that she fought valiantly. She died saving Andrew's life, and she didn't. And I cried at that. I'm like, the fucking storyteller, man. Stories stories are a moral good. Andrew's arc is the only clearly defined one in this entire season, and he's the only one who reaches an emotional arc, honestly, of maturity. He's the only one. He's the only one who has a viable arc, one that feels immense. And I cried at that part where he was telling Xander, lying to him, telling him a story. The storyteller. I fucking cried. Andrew was so good. Tom Lenk is the actor who portrayed Andrew, and I thought he was extraordinary, a phenomenal performance. Um, and yeah, awkwardly, surprisingly, he's a character who made me cry on this rewatch. There's something just so immense about him as a storyteller, about him choosing to tell a story to Xander about Anya. Speaking of Anya, a lot of people take issue with how Anya was killed. I I think I err on the side of you had to raise the stakes. You had to kill people in that final battle. You had to. Spike's sacrifice isn't enough because they already knew he was going to come back for season five of Angel. It wasn't enough. It was a great moment. It was a great sacrifice. I love you. No, you don't, but thanks for saying it. It's lovely. It's wonderful. But one of the one of the core had to fall, and it had to be Anya. If you look at everybody in the group, it had to be Anya. That's the only logical choice to kill in that moment if you have any plans of continuing this, either in comic book form or in some form of media. I don't know what ideas were being kicked around at the time, but Anya was like far and away. the the only option really if you were going to kill a member of the core like that. Um, I think that it's kind of fine that she's kind of killed unceremoniously, because I think that's what people take issue with, the fact that that killing her seemed like an afterthought. But I think that that's part of Joss being a cruel writer, is that he kills her almost seemingly without thought, but that completion of Andrew's arc, which also helps to complete part of Xander's arc as well, since part of Xander's whole deal this season is him being kind of hung up on Anya and vice versa, her hung up on him. Um, you could argue that Anya died um, so that two kind of immature man-childs could complete some sort of emotional journey or whatever, and you'd be absolutely right. Um, but I don't feel like I have to remind you who Joss Whedon is. Because when I'm watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I'm watching Joss, this existentialist turned deep, dire nihilist throughout the course of making this series. I think I'm watching a guy trying to hold on to a spark of humanity, trying to hold on to his soul, because Buffy is a show about the importance and value of the soul, of the human condition and experience. And I feel like Joss is trying to hold on to that, the goodness of it. And over time, over the course of the series, in very, very real and morbid time, Joss is losing his connection to his own soul. He loses it. He loses it. And that's part of what I think makes Buffy so interesting to view and analyze like this, but it's also what makes it so tragic and problematic. You know, I think we're watching a guy just lose his connection to humanity and his soul. I mean, he would go on from Buffy to make Firefly, which, like, make no mistake, it does feel like his most optimistic show, but it's also deeply reactionary and unquestionably nihilistic, cosmically nihilistic and pessimistic. Like, don't mistake it for the kind of like super Star Wars like ragtag team of colorful misfits thing. Remember that there's a cosmic pessimism um that is flowing through every single episode of Firefly, and certainly it is overwhelming in serenity. And then Dollhouse, I believe, is pure and uncut nihilism, and probably the most interesting thing Joss ever did. He doesn't really put on any airs. There's no veil covering his nihilism in Dollhouse. It's pure and uncut and extremely confrontational, and I think makes for some beautiful art. That's what Dollhouse is. Buffy is the struggle. Buffy represents the struggle of Joss Whedon, a struggle that he lost, the struggle of his own humanity, of his own moral compass, his own framework. We see it getting lost here, and that's represented not only in his own behavior, his own kind of unforgivable behavior to members of the cast. I need to remind you that Michelle Trachtenberg was a child on this show. She was a kid, or at least like a teenager. She was a kid, and Joss was not allowed to be alone in a room with her. That's fucked up, and that's fucking weird. Um, we already went over that he kind of bullied James Marsters, and Sarah Michelle Gellar called it like a very toxic and aggressive working environment, and Joss would call her a bitch and say the worst kind of things about her. Joss acted very indecently, very irresponsibly, and very unprofessionally. Uh, Also inhumanely, because I think that Buffy, throughout it, we see him struggle with his humanity and choose nihilism. He made a choice, and that choice involved losing whatever goodness I do believe was within him. But you don't just see that in the behavior of his actual behavior on set and to members of the cast and crew, even his own writing team. You also see it in his writing because he would start to kind of be cruel to the people that he was writing about, to the characters he was writing about. Look at how much he clearly hated Buffy, and I feel like some of that has to be how much he hated Sarah Michelle Gellar. He also did not get along with Emma Caulfield, who played Anya. I think that if you irritated him, he would punish you in various ways, either through his toxic behavior on set or through the script itself. We have to remember that a large part of what makes Buffy the Vampire Slayer um, complicated is that it is born of a very problematic mind. I think that problematic mind is genius, and I know it's kind of difficult for a lot of people in the fandom and just in general to accept that a problematic human being can also be terribly, terribly brilliant. Um, but Joss Whedon was. He was a genius. In season 7, though, his genius was not apparent, it was not visible. The motivations of the characters seem unclear. The huge battle at the end, I don't understand the mechanics of. I don't understand the framework of the action. I don't understand the point or the purpose or like how the fuck. Wait, were you just going there hoping that that amulet around Spike's neck would just activate? Like you didn't know that thing was gonna do. What are you doing? You just went there like if Spike's neck thing, they call it a necklace, Zach. But if his necklace didn't start going off and he sacrificed himself, nothing like what the fuck was the other just die? What the fuck was the other plan? Why were you there? And we go to these kind of interesting philosophical places. Like you have to go back to high school and they could have talked about how like our core characters are going back and kind of battling the demons from high school that they haven't been able to outgrow, trauma that they haven't recovered from that was invented and abused into them in high school. But we don't necessarily talk about that. We really, really don't. But there's something really poetic and really cool about the first evil having its headquarters at a public high school, at your public high school. But that's not really explored much, is it? You know, that would be Doss doing 20% of the poetic work, and I'm doing the other 80%. So fuck that, Joss. You didn't do that very well at all. But like there are all these interesting themes that are just not being utilized well. Even like maybe a criticism of fundamentalist religion through the fact that Caleb was this misogynist preacher. We don't actually do the extra legwork to kind of juxtapose religion to the first evil and how intimate they are with each other, with the role play that the first evil plays with this preacher. Like, what the it's lazy, actually. It's lazy. It's lazy and it's overconfident, and the word for that is arrogant. What makes season 7 bad is the arrogance of Joss Whedon, I would have to say. The arrogance of Joss Whedon. It's not Icarus flying too close to the sun. This Icarus didn't even get off the ground. The arrogance of Joss Whedon makes season 7 a very difficult season to get through. I love seeing Faith, obviously. Faith is forever my girlfriend till the day I die. It's always nice seeing her, and her redemption story is going quite well. It's working out pretty. Things are looking good for our girl Faith. Eliza Dushku lights up the screen and shocks my heart. She was Rock'em Sock'em this season, okay? Faith was Rock'em Sock'em. Um, and you really needed her. You really needed Faith. Um, thank God Faith was in this season. It adds a lot more gravity to the situations. I thought Faith was awesome. I thought that Robin Wood was a good character too. The fight that he had with Spike uh, where he has to, I think, first download and then play the song that triggers Spike to become a violent demon, and so we can try to kill him like that. Robin Wood was a cool character. I like Robin. Um, Once again, like we go to the precipice of very interesting things, but then we don't explore any further. And I think Robin Wood suffers from the arrogance of Joss Whedon, but he's still a good character. It's weird. I think that I really do think Andrew is the only character who is treated with respect and dignity this season, and he's obviously one of the most undignified characters. I think that he's the only character who was given an arc that was damn close to brilliant. That's a very good arc. No one else had an arc that was that good, really, honestly. Um, like, do I even want to go into Dawn, or Xander? They're interesting insofar as they are unremarkable, but they are entirely necessary to the heroes involved. Without them, our heroes would be powerless in a very large way without ordinary, unremarkable people like Dawn and Xander. And I do like that. I do like that. That is very cool and very interesting. Or if not extremely interesting, it's very emotional. So, like, that's cool, but that's the end. That's not an arc. That's not an arc. That is simply character development. There's no way that's not an actual arc. So, like, fuck that. Anya doesn't really have one. You know, no one really has one. Buffy doesn't have one. What about Buffy is different from the first episode of season 7 to the last? Like, is she a better leader now? No, I always knew she had that leadership within her. She always like led the fucking Scoobs. She might be more autonomous. I guess that we have some very lazy feminist statements being made in this season. And this show has made some very clear and very powerful feminist statements in its past. So I'm kind of like irritated by how inarticulate or at least half considered the feminism of season 7 is, with the idea that like this axe could activate all of the slayers. The reason why there's only been one chosen one is because of patriarchy. These watchers decided that only one powerful woman, there can't be more than one extremely all powerful woman. There can't be more than one. And Willow uses her magic to use that axe, which does look pretty fucking cool, by the way, to activate all of the potential slayers in the world. And now all these girls are all powerful, but and that's like a lazy fucking statement. We even learn that there are guardians, these kind of ancient mystical like women who oversee the watchers. It's kind of this Russian doll of very, very lazy feminist theory. Like none of it is really made with any impact. Not anymore. Not anymore. You aren't really saying anything interesting there, because it's not like every single girl in the world is now all powerful. It's all the ones who were randomly chosen by some force that we never actually define within Buffy. It's still the uniquely spectacular becoming even more uniquely spectacular. It's not as grand of a feminist statement as the show thinks that it is, or I don't even know if it thinks that it is, because I don't even think that the show is trying too hard to make powerful feminist statements anymore. And the ones it does make are a bit too on the fucking nose and very lazy about it, and lacks the punch. Or the season itself is throwing its punches. Like, I wish I could talk to Joss and be like, what were your ambitions with the final season of Buffy? Because you flopped. Like, what were your ambitions? Like, it's definitely not the way that you envisioned it. What were your intentions? What exactly did you want to express? Because you didn't, but you could have. It's just I think that every decision that was made by the show was the wrong decision this season, the wrong one. Do I hate it? No. I think season 1 is worse than season 7, because at least season 7 doesn't feel like a prototype. It doesn't feel like a warm up. Season 7 does feel like a conclusion. It does feel like a climax. It just feels like a very underwhelming one, which is, I think, unfortunate, because Buffy the Vampire Slayer, as I covered at the very beginning, is one of the most phenomenal shows ever made. And to have such an underwhelming climax is it's just so aggravating to me. I wish that Joss Whedon would come out and say like, this is okay, I fucked up. This is what I wanted to happen here." You know, because it's a swing and a miss, and coming from a guy who doesn't like normally miss, something happened, something went wrong, and I don't know what it is because I'm unable to see that. I can tell you all the problems in season 7. It's the entirety of it. It's the entire design, the entire composition of season 7 was a wrong direction, was the wrong way to go with basically everything about it. Um, So that's why I would need it directly from Joss as to why even go in this direction in the first place. Season 6, it was a gamble. It was a huge nihilistic gamble, and it paid off for you. You went to the casino and you won with season 6. Season 7, it's like somehow you're playing it safe by doing the most asinine fucking things in the world. So like, oh, I wish I knew. I don't know. I don't know what Joss thought he was doing with this season. I really don't. All I do know is that he flopped. It's it's an unfortunate resolution, an unfortunate end to one of the most fantastic things I've ever seen. And as we're at the end of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, all I can say is thank you, Buffy. You saved me too. Thank you. So many incredible memories through this show, so many incredible characters, so many incredible events, so many amazing scenes, so many interesting dynamics, plot threads, narratives, storylines. The design of the show itself and the writing involved, the composition of its visuals, the rearrangement of archetypes and status quo, the structure. Beautiful postmodern work. Thank you, Buffy, for saving me. You do that really well, because I'm not alone. This show spoke to so many different people in so many different ways. My reading of this show, it's unique to me. Everyone has their own. Everyone has their own relationship with this show, and so many people love it. And the heart of Buffy, it's large enough to encompass all sorts of different readings, all sorts of different kinds of people who are drawn to these characters for their own reasons. Thank you for listening to some of mine. I've had a blast covering Buffy the Vampire Slayer with all of you. Thank you.